Hey everybody, this one is called Bankster Thieves number 4. Bank deposit is a loan, and they are getting ready to steal a huge amount of money. And if you don't get your money out of the bank, put as little in there, it's better off being stuffed under your mattress. Anyways, Bankster Thieves number 4 begins right now. Some foundational things that you might want to check out is Bankster Thieves 1, Bankster Thieves 2, and Bankster Thieves 3. All bank loans are a fraud, and no such thing as a bank loan. Those are all some foundational videos that you ought to watch before you watch this one, because they lay some foundational things that we talk about in this video. Copies of these documents can be found in my private group at Yahoo called Administering Your Public Servants. For a complete set of YouTube videos with private information shares, a DVD with over 50 searchable law dictionaries, and other books and forums, contact me privately at engineerwin@yahoo.com. And donations to support this work are appreciated. I prefer gold or silver coin, but as an extreme less desirable alternative, I can accept the fake money, the military script, the IOUs, the Federal Reserve notes, the PayPal gifts, the checks, the money orders, etc. Send me an email for particulars. Anyways, when you deposit money into a bank account, the money belongs to the bank. They have a contract to give it back, but the bottom line is it belongs to them. Bank deposits are unsecured debts to the bank. Secured debts take priority. You are loaning the bank money. Collateralized debt obligations. Anybody remember 2008? And the so-called subprime crisis, where they went and bundled up a bunch of mortgages into a collateralized debt obligation. They take priority over unsecured debts. And how many of those things are circulating, and how many derivatives are circulating around there? Deutsche Bank is a good example. They have a huge amount of derivatives, and there's other banks that have them too. And so how much of that is out there? Okay, you got to be thinking about this, because it's getting ready to come home to roost really, really soon. Check out my other videos, or don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel. Don't forget to follow me on Steemit at Sovereignty International. Don't forget to like this video. On YouTube, don't forget to click the bell next to the subscribe button so you're notified when there's a new upload. On Steemit, don't forget to vote and make your comments. And there's my BitChute channel there, although I don't have a complete set of my videos up there. This is my YouTube channel. And if you notice, the arrow is pointing at the bell. The subscribe button above the arrow is already clicked, because otherwise it'll be red. The arrow, when you click on that bell, a little pop-up will come up, and there's a box you have to check, and you click OK, and then the bell will look like it's ringing, which means that you get notified when there's a new upload. And when you're notified when I upload new videos, then you'll be notified, and so you can go and check it out. This is Steemit, and the left arrow is where you do the upvotes. The middle arrow is how many upvotes have been made, and the right arrow is where you make comments. And all of that is good on Steemit. This is another one on Steemit. The hand, that's my mouse, actually is hitting Crypto Wallet, and that little pop-up window comes down, and that's where you can follow or unfollow somebody. Anyways, when you deposit money into a bank, you are loaning them money. You have to understand that, because that is exactly what's going on. The banksters harass you if you want more than $1,000 in cash out of your own account. Okay? That's not a loan. That's just to get $1,000 of your own money back. And they harass you. The banksters harass you if you want to exchange foreign currency. I recently went in to exchange $200, just a lousy $200 worth of Canadian currency into U.S., and they wanted a government-issued ID. Matter of fact, I didn't get it exchanged because I don't have a government-issued ID. And I sent some really scathing letters to Congress because of that. The banksters really harass you a lot if you want one of their so-called loans. They want your girlfriend when you were 3 years old. And they're nothing but a bunch of thieves after you loaned them the money in the first place. The Federal Reserve Bank was created in the middle of the night on Christmas Eve of 1913. It took less than 20 years for them to bankrupt the country. This is a U.S. Congressional Record, March 17, 1993. It is an established fact that the United States federal government has been dissolved by the Emergency Banking Act, March 9, 1933, 48 Stat 1, Public Law 89-719, declared by President Roosevelt being bankrupt and insolvent. HJR 192, 73rd Congress and Session, June 5, 1933. Joint resolution to suspend the gold standard and abrogate the gold clause dissolved the sovereign authority of the United States and the official capacities of all United States governmental officers, and departments, and is further evidence that the United States federal government exists today in name only. Federal Reserve notes, or IOUs, as found in Bankster Thieves 1 and 2 videos. Remember, we talked about those at the beginning. Anything purchased with Federal Reserve notes is purchased on United States credit. If you buy something on United States, like using the United States credit card, and if you buy something on United States credit or the credit of any other corporation, who owns it? The corporation owns it. If United States is owned and operated by the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, then the Bankster Thieves own everything you buy. That's exactly what's going on. They're just getting you used to it. They're getting you used to being a slave. This is Gold Reserve Act of 1934, located at 48 Stat 337, Section 15. As used in this act, the term United States means government of the United States. The term currency of the United States means currency, which is legal tender in the United States and includes United States notes and Federal Reserve notes, which means that United States notes, bank notes, Federal Reserve notes are meant for internal use of the government only. Mortgages are found in Roman civil law. Negotiable instrument law is a subset of Roman civil law. Federal Reserve bank notes, Bank of Canada notes, Bank of England notes are meant for internal use of the government only. By using a negotiable instrument to purchase things, the de facto courts presume you consent to the martial law rule as found in the We Are Under Martial Law Rule video and the de facto courts video. You've agreed to it. There's a Clearfield doctrine. That's where you're in a contract and you agreed to be a slave. Clearfield Trust Company versus United States, U.S. Supreme Court. Because you purchased anything with their private money system, Federal Reserve notes, Bank of Canada notes, or Bank of England notes, or any other kind of central bank notes, technically the banksters own what you purchased. That's why there's a tax. By orchestrating the subprime mortgage crisis, the Bankster Thieves are just taking what they already own, technically. This is all made possible because of Roman civil law, the United Nations, and the Roman cult. Because you accept Federal Reserve notes, Bank of Canada notes, Bank of England notes as compensation for your labor, the de facto courts can presume you're a government employee. And especially when you give out a social security number or a social insurance number, depending on what country you happen to be in. There has been created a fictitious federal state of XXX within a state. See Howard versus Sinking Fund of Louisville. That's U.S. Supreme Court, and that's cited in this Schwartz versus O'Hara Township School District, Pennsylvania case. Two national governments exist, one to be maintained under the Constitution with all its restrictions, the other to be maintained by Congress outside and independent of that instrument. And that's the dissenting opinion of Justice Marshall Harlan in the case Downs versus Bidwell, U.S. Supreme Court. Okay? And so which United States are you in? Are you in the unconstitutional corporation? Because if you are, you're a piece of property. If you're in the lawful de jure one, then you're the king. And there's nothing in between. My contact information, my blog is sovereigntyinternational.wordpress.com. My website is sovereigntyinternational.fyi. My email address is engineerwin@yahoo.com. My YouTube profile, Sovereign Living. My Facebook community page is deleted. My private group at Facebook called Sovereignty International is being deleted. It takes time to ban 17,000 people off your group, and I'm not going to let Facebook profit from my hard work. My Yahoo private group is called Administrating Your Public Servants. My Google private group is called Administrating Your Public Servants. Now, Yahoo and Google obviously don't like what I'm doing, and so they're making these groups hard to find. So if you need to, send me an email. I'll invite you to the group. And once you get the invitation, you'll have no trouble finding it. Follow me on Twitter at Engineer Win. Follow me on Steemit at Sovereignty International, and on BitChute at Sovereignty International, although I don't have a complete set of my videos up there. I believe that banking institutions are more dangerous to our liberties than standing armies. If the American people ever allow private banks to control the issue of their currency, first by inflation, then by deflation, the banks and corporations that will grow up around the banks will deprive the people of all property until their children wake up homeless on the continent their fathers conquered. The issuing power should be taken from the banks and restored to the people to whom it properly belongs. And this is Thomas Jefferson in the debate over the recharter of the bank bill. And boy, has that ever turned out to be prophetic. That's exactly what's going on right now. If all bank loans were paid, no one would have a bank deposit. There would not be a dollar of currency or coin in circulation. This is a staggering thought. We are completely dependent on the commercial banks. Someone has to borrow every dollar we have into circulation, cash or credit. If the banks create ample synthetic money, we are prosperous. If not, we starve. We are absolutely without a permanent monetary system. When one gets a complete grasp upon the picture, the tragic absurdity of our hopeless position is almost incredible. But there it is. The banking problem, is the most important subject intelligent persons can investigate and reflect upon. It is so important that our present civilization may collapse unless it is widely understood and the defects remedied very soon. And this is Robert H. Hemphill, credit manager of the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta for 8 years. And that was done in the 50s when he made that statement, 50s or 60s. The American Revolution was primarily fought over the King George III's Currency Act. The refusal of King George III to allow the colonies to operate an honest money system, which freed the ordinary man from the clutches of the money manipulators, was probably the prime cause of the revolution. Benjamin Franklin. This is Colonel Edward Mandell House in a private meeting with Woodrow Wilson, who was president from 1913 to 1921. Very soon, every American will be required to register their biological property in a national system designed to keep track of the people that will operate under the ancient system of pledging. By such methodology, we can compel people to submit to our agenda, which will affect our security as a chargeback for our fiat paper currency. Every American will be forced to register or suffer not being able to work and earn a living. They will be our chattel, and we will hold the security interest over them forever by operation of the law merchant under the scheme of secured transactions. Ain't that the truth? Americans, by unknowingly or unwittingly delivering the bills of lading to us, will be rendered bankrupt and insolvent forever to remain economic slaves through taxation secured by their pledges. Ain't that the truth? That's because our brain-dead idiots' mothers went and signed up for those birth certificates. That's exactly it, okay? And my mother is just as bad as the rest of them. It goes on. They will be stripped of their rights and given a commercial value designed to make us a profit, and they will be none the wiser, for not one man in a million could ever figure our plans, and if by accident one or two would figure it out, we have in our arsenal plausible deniability, a bought and paid for news media. After all, this is the only logical way to fund government, by floating liens and debt to the registrants in the form of benefits and privileges. This will inevitably reap to us huge profits beyond our wildest expectations, and leave every American a contributor to this fraud which we call social insurance. Without realizing it, every American will insure us for any loss we may incur, and in this manner every American will unknowingly be our servant, however begrudgingly. The people will become helpless and without any hope for their redemption, and we will employ the high office of the president of our dummy corporation to foment this plot against America. And that's why you cannot argue the Uniform Commercial Code, because when you do, you participate in the fraud. When you participate in the fraud, you cannot claim fraud. And President Wilson even talked about it after he passed the Federal Reserve Act, which instituted the fractional reserve system in the United States. I am a most unhappy man. I have unwittingly ruined my country, the traitor. A great industrial nation is controlled by its system of credit. The growth of the nation, therefore, and all our activities are in the hands of a few men. We have come to be one of the worst ruled and one of the most completely controlled and dominated governments in the civilized world, a government by the opinion and duress of a small group of dominant men. That was in 1921. What do you think it's like now? Check out my other videos, Bankster Thieves playlist, Roman cult playlist, bankrupt corporate so-called governments, bar members 1 through 3, do-it-yourself how not to volunteer for the selective service in the draft, martial laws here, do-it-yourself no income tax, do-it-yourself free mail, do-it-yourself kangaroo courts 1 through 15, Canada Border Pigs playlist, bar members and their Satanic Connections playlist. And this is all because of the Bankster Thieves. After World War I and the Treaty of Versailles, Germany was forced to repay the cost of the war and was bankrupt. Hitler's crime was that he did not borrow money from the Bankster Thieves, he printed it. And as a result, the German economy was turned around in less than 3 years. Kennedy circulated $6 billion of U.S. Treasury notes, and Johnson's first act while on the plane to D.C. from Dallas after Kennedy's murder was to recall those notes. Lincoln was killed because he circulated $400 million in U.S. Treasury notes. President Garfield was killed because he wanted to circulate U.S. Treasury notes. Under Gaddafi, Libya had debt-free currency until they had him killed. Saddam Hussein was preparing to circulate a gold-backed debt-free currency until he was killed. Christ was killed 3 days after he threw the money changers out of the temple. The Bankster Thieves will stop at nothing to keep their power. There are two ways to conquer and enslave a nation. One is by the sword, and the other is by debt. John Adams, 1826. The money powers prey upon the nation in times of peace and conspire against it in times of adversity. It is more despotic than monarchy, more insolent than autocracy, and more selfish than bureaucracy. It denounces as public enemies all who question its methods or throw light upon its crimes. As a result of the war, corporations have been enthroned, an area of corruption in high places will follow, and the money powers of the country will endeavor to prolong its reign by working upon the prejudices of the people until all wealth is aggregated in a few hands and the republic is destroyed. Boy, ain't that the truth. Abraham Lincoln. When injustice becomes law, then resistance becomes duty. Thomas Jefferson. Is there any wonder why Christ threw the Bankster Thieves of his day out of the temple? Christ even called them thieves. Vid.me shut down on the 15th of December. My YouTube channel called Sovereignty International is deleted. I made the exclusive content available on my website. I have 2 subscription levels and I accept cryptocurrencies. The basic subscription level is $29.99 a year for the videos only, and the platinum subscription level is $49.99 a year for the videos plus unlimited consultations. But that has some limitations because I am not a liar. No, I meant an attorney. No, actually, I meant a liar, because I can tell you what I would do under a certain circumstances, but I can tell you what I would do under a certain circumstance and where to find the forms. And also, people on other previous subscription plans will remain on that plan as long as they renew it. Now, as far as the unlimited consultations are concerned, it does not include phone calls, it does not include babysitting, it does not include preparing documents or reviewing documents. Again, I can tell you what I would do under a certain circumstance and where to get the forms. If you need somebody to hold your hand on whether you should swear it under penalty of perjury or get it notarized, then that's babysitting. And that doesn't mean that I get 5 emails a day for 3 weeks either, okay? The only power that the New World Order Satanists have over us is through fraud and deception, and my agenda is to expose it for all our benefit, but I cannot fight all the battles. So if you want to get a subscription as a method of donation, then that's great. It's a modest donation. There's no doubt about it, but everything is appreciated, and a whole bunch of people chipping in a little bit adds up pretty fast. I'm currently publishing one video a week, and the bottom two links are on my website. The first one, the top of the two links, is where my videos are that are, because they're kind of hard to find on YouTube. YouTube doesn't make them too easy to find. And so if you go to my webpage, they're all there organized in a by categories, so they're easy to find, and you can help you study based on different topics and categories. The bottom link is for the subscribers, all the subscription videos, and so then you can find those as well. Some of my exclusive content is Arlington Private Information Share, which is 9 videos by itself. Land deed training, there's a couple videos about that. Estoppel certificates training, foreclosure estoppel certificates training, corporate denial training, toll roads notice and demand training, invoice training, notice of void judgment training, revocation of signature training, third-party witness training, federal habeas corpus training, revocation of voter registration. Bar members, number 4, which is basically some dealings I had with some bar members recently and what I did. Criminal complaint training. Now, there's a couple of those, and there's going to be more depending on issues that come up. Lawsuit training is not up there yet, and there's probably going to be several of them depending on the issues that come up and when I do them. And other training depending on requests. So all forms, files, and other instructions are available for free on my 2 private groups at Yahoo Groups and Google Groups. The training videos and the ones that are here are considered above and beyond. I want to make sure everybody for free can find what they need to know to free themselves. But the training stuff and the stuff that's in this exclusive content is stuff that's above and beyond, and that's why the subscription. And the exclusive content is going to be on my website, and you can buy a subscription there. So this is all coming from the Roman cult. Okay? Civil law, Roman civil law are convertible phrases meaning the same system of jurisprudence, that rule of action which every particular nation, commonwealth, or city has established peculiarly for itself, more properly called municipal law, to distinguish it from the law of nature and from international law. And so municipal law is Roman law. This is all coming from the Roman cult. Yet still it was found difficult to set bounds to ecclesiastical ingenuity. That's the Roman cult, folks. For when they were driven out of all their former holes, they devised a new method of conveyance by which the lands were granted not to themselves directly, but to nominal fiefs to the use of the religious houses, thus distinguishing between the possession and the use, and receiving the actual profits, while the season of the land remained in the nominal fief, who was held by the courts of equity, then under the direction of the clergy. That's the Roman cult, folks. That's quite the scam, isn't it? So they get to create this Sestake trust, and then they get to decide whether there's a contract or not. Isn't that quite the scam? To be bound in conscience to account to a Sestake use for the rents and emoluments of the estate, and that's taxes. See, that's quite the scam, isn't it? They get to volunteer you in for the slave. And it is to these inventions that our practitioners are indebted for the introduction of uses and trusts, the foundation of modern conveyancing. And that's Tomlin's Law Dictionary, 1835 edition, volume 2, under the definition of mortmain. And it was the foundation of modern conveyancing in 1835, and it still is to this day. Matter of fact, look at this. This is the DC Code. The legal estate to be in the Sestake use in Chapter 56, Section 1617, located at 31 Stat 1432. And at Chapter 3 in Section 252 at 31 Stat 1230, where it says the presumption of death. If any person shall leave his domicile, so they presume that you're dead. Okay, so that's the Sestake Trust. They presume that you're dead. It's an estate. Again, there's more DC Code stuff, an act to establish a code of law for the District of Columbia, which was approved March 3rd, 1901 by the 56th Congress. Absence of, this is presumption of death, the same thing again. A citizen of the United States is a civilly dead entity operating as co-trustee and co-beneficiary of the Public Charitable Trust, the Constructive Sestake Trust of U.S. Inc. under the 14th Amendment, which upholds the debt of the USA and U.S. Inc. And that's a summary of 5 pages of congressional record on June 13th, 1967. And this is, again, more DC code. And this is at 2, which is right up in the front at 31 Stat 1189. And be it further enacted that in the interpretation and construction of said code, the following rules shall be observed, namely the word person shall be held to apply to partnerships and corporations. And this is in re Bolins, another summary of that case. Every taxpayer is assessed to a trust having sufficient interest in preventing the abuse of the trust to be recognized in the field of this court's prerogative jurisdiction. And this is U.S. versus Slater, a Delaware court case. Slater's protestations to the effect that he derives no benefit from the United States government have no bearing on his legal obligations to pay income taxes unless the defendant can establish that he's not a citizen of the United States. The IRS possesses authority to attempt to determine his federal tax liability, so he's a U.S. citizen's a slave. And this is where it's all codified. That D.C. code, this is where it's all codified. 15 U.S.C. Section 44, definitions, corporation shall be deemed to include any company, trust, so-called Massachusetts trust or association, incorporated or unincorporated, which is organized to carry on business for its own profit or that of its members, and has shares of capital or capital stock or certificates of interest, and it goes through the same definition except it does not have shares of capital or capital stock or certificates of interest. And so, again, that's the Sestake Trust. Okay, that's exactly what it is. That is the Sestake Trust. Well, there's other things that can fall into that, but the Sestake Trust certainly falls into that. It's interesting to note that it excludes partnerships. So, anyways, the point is that this is where it's codified. This is the Sestake Trust. Corporations have no rights. Corporations are property. Okay, and this is all corporate law. If you haven't recorded an affidavit of corporate denial, then they're just going to go ahead and presume that you're a corporation and you're a slave. You're a piece of property. Congress shall have power to dispose of and make all needful rules and regulations respecting the territory or other property belonging to the United States. That's corporations or all property of the government. This is Constitution for the United States of America, Article 4, Section 2. Corporations have no rights. This is Canadian Ownership and Control Determination Act. And owned means subject to the regulations. If they're assaulting you with the regulations, then you are owned. You are property. That's what property is owned. And you are a slave. That's what a slave is. That's how you decide that you're a slave, is because you are owned. That's what slaves get to work for nothing. My history of the Jesuits is not eloquently written, but it is supported by unquestionable authorities and is very particular and very horrible. There, the Jesuit order's restoration in 1814 by Pope Pius VII is indeed a step towards darkness, cruelty, despotism, and death. I do not like the appearance of the Jesuits as if there was a body of men who merited eternal damnation on earth and in hell. It is the Society of Ignatius de Loyola. And that's John Adams, who was second president of the United States. Within 20 years, this country is going to rule the world. Kings and emperors will soon pass away, and the democracy of the United States will take their place. When the United States rules the world, the Catholic Church will rule the world. Nothing can stand against the Church. And that is Roman Catholic Archbishop James E. Quigley, a cite from the Chicago Daily Tribune, May 5th, 1903. So that would put it 1923. Well, it wasn't exactly 20 years, but it wasn't long after that when when it was all completed. This is when the pimp came to speak at Congress in 24th of September 2015, Roman Conquest. And that text is really hard to read, so I actually put it down right here. So the first, in the top left-hand corner, it says Roman Achaea, military staff carried in battle by all Roman commands, planted on all conquered nations. And so that's the top left corner where it's pointing at that staff with the eagle on top of it. The eagle is the symbol of the Roman cult. Yeah, that's true. That's very true. Matter of fact, the Nazis in the Second World War used the symbol of the eagle. So I wouldn't be too proud that the American eagle a symbol, because that's the Roman cult. Anyways, the next one is a devout Roman Catholic, honorary degree from Jesuit Scranton University, okay? And so that's actually that's the second one. That's the top, actually the bottom left, and it's pointing at Joe Biden. And so then the next one is Roman bundle of rods bound to a weapon symbolizing subservient under the rule of a single man. And that is the bottom one. And it's pointing at the two fascias that are on both sides of the podium. And so then we have a devout Roman Catholic trained by Jesuits, installed first Jesuit chaplain to the house. Oh, how convenient. Whoops. And that's the right-hand one at the top, and it's pointing at Boehner, or whatever his name is, the Speaker of the House at the time. Anyways, so to keep moving, why do you think Donald Trump's first international trip includes the Roman cult on the itinerary? Why do you think that Pope looks so angry in his pictures with Donald Trump? And if you don't know what I mean, get a load of this. Okay, he's with Obama, and they're laughing and chuckling, thinking how they're going to steal all this money and murder all these people. And then Donald Trump, you know, he's serious, he's patriotic, he's a populist, and the pimp is not too happy about it because justice is coming. And so there we go, right there. That's a perfect picture. Bankster Thieves 4, Adolfo Nicholas Pachon, 2008, the 30th Superior General of Society of Jesus, the Black Pope, January 2008. Actually, it's not to the present. I think he's been removed. Master and Overseer of the White Pope, who was Benedict XVI at the time, Satan's present ruler of the world. And notice the IHS. That's in his service. That's the Pope. Okay, so that's the Jesuit symbol. Go ye then into all the world and take possession of all lands in the name of the Pope. He who will not accept him as vicar of Jesus and vice regent on earth, let him be accursed and exterminated. And that's the Jesuit extreme oath of induction. And notice this is the statue on the right. And notice that he's got their feet on the people. Okay, they got their feet on the people. Okay, that's the Jesuits. The Jesuit oath, I firmly promise and declare that I will, when opportunity present, make and wage relentless war, secretly or openly. See, they're cowards. Against all heretics, Protestant and liberals, as I am directed to do, to extirpate and exterminate them from the face of the whole earth, that I will spare neither age, sex, or condition, that I will hang, waste, boil, flay, strangle, bury alive these infamous heretics, rip up the stomachs and wombs of their women, and crush their infants' heads against the walls, in order to annihilate forever their inexorable race, that when the same cannot be done openly, I will secretly use the poisoned cup, the strangulating cord, the steel of the poniard, or the leaden bullet, regardless of the honor, rank, dignity, or authority of the persons or persons. See, they're cowards. Whatever may be their condition in life, either public or private, as I at any time may be directed so to do by any agent of the Pope or superior of the Brotherhood of the Holy Faith of the Society of Jesus. And I've got other YouTube videos that has a whole oath in there, and it is like, just, these people are cowards. They're Satanists. This is just an absolute abomination. Ever wonder why the world is so diabolically evil? Meet the man that plans it that way, the Black Pope Adolfo Nicholas, the most powerful man in the world and behind the plan for the New World Order. The Superior General of the Jesuits, the Black Pope Adolfo Nicholas, and his 6 generals control the White Pope and the Roman cult and the entire list below. The Illuminati, the Zionists, the Global Elite, the Council on Foreign Relations, the Bilderberger Group, the Freemasons, the Council of 300, the United Nations, and the Council of Trent. The Jesuits control the Knights Templar, the Knights of Columbus, and the Knights of Malta. The CIA, the FBI, the NSA, the ASIO, the MI5, MI6, NCIS, FSB, DGSE, Mossad, and every intelligence agency in the world are Masonic and controlled by the Jesuits. The Jesuits have infiltrated most governments and leaders, including Obama, and make them puppets that carry out Jesuit orders. And there's the pimp right there. And notice the Society of Jesus symbol on the right, and the Masonic symbol on the left. and in the center, the bull, the goat's head. Okay, this is all Satanism. Pope claims you're not Christian if you own a gun. Yeah. They don't want anybody being able to defend themselves. They want to be able to murder people with impunity. That's what these Satanists do. Know your popes. Number one, after massacring the entire population of the Italian town of Palestrina, Boniface VIII indulged in menages with a married woman and her daughter and became renowned through Rome as a shameless pedophile. Well, gee, just nothing changes, does it? He famously declared that having sex with young boys was no more a sin than rubbing one hand against the other. The Pope Dante reserved a place for him in the eighth circle of hell. Oh, the poet Dante reserved a place for him in the eighth circle of hell. And so, again, that's the kind of people these people are. These people are Satanists. Know your popes. Number 9. 37 of his own clergy member witnessed and professed against John the 23rd on the charges of fornication, adultery, incest, sodomy, simony, theft, and murder. He also had a harem of mistresses in Boulogne numbering 200, consisting mostly, if not entirely, of nuns. Just an abomination. These people are Satanists. The Vatican New World Order, Herman Van Rompuy, the president of the European Council, stated recently, "We are all Jesuits." He was referring to those prominent European leaders with whom he was developing the Roman Catholic architecture of the future Europe. It creates unbreakable ties, so there is a Jesuits International, and there they are, all of them having a good old time, and the Jesuit symbol there too. And this is, wherever this seal is openly displayed, the Jesuit orders in control. And this, in case the Jesuit seal, the IHS, you see that? Well, this is number 10 Downing Street. That's where the Prime Minister of England lives. Okay, that's the equivalent of the White House in the United States and 24 Sussex Drive in Canada. Pope Nicholas V issued papal bull Dum Diversas on 18th of June 1452. It authorized Alfonso V of Portugal to reduce any Saracens, Muslims, and pagans, or any other non-believers to perpetual slavery. That's anybody who's not Catholic, by the way. This facilitated the Portuguese slave trade from West Africa. The same pope wrote the bull Romanus Pontifex on January 5th, 1455, to the same Alfonso as a follow-up to the Dum Diversas that extended to the Catholic nations of the Europe dominion over discovered lands during the Age of Discovery. That means in North America and South America. Along with sanctifying the seizure of non-Christian lands, it encouraged the enslavement of native non-Christian peoples in Africa and the New World. Okay, so that's where they murdered all these Native Americans. We weighing all in singular the premises. We weighing all the singular premises with due meditation, and noting that since we formerly by our letters of ours granted among others free and ample faculty to the said aforesaid King Alfonso to invade, search out, capture, vanquish, and subdue all Saracens, pagans, whatsoever, and other enemies of the Roman cult, wheresoever placed, anybody who's not Roman cult, and the kingdoms, dukedoms, principality, dominions, possessions, and all movable and immovable goods whatsoever held and possessed by them, and to reduce their persons to perpetual slavery, and to apply all and appropriate to himself and his successors the kingdom, dukedoms, counties, principalities, dominions, possessions, and goods, and to convert them to his and their use and profit. By having secured the said faculty, the said King Alfonso, or by his authority the aforesaid infant, justly and lawfully has acquired and possessed and doth possess these islands, lands, harbors, and seas, and they do of right belong and pertain to the said King Alfonso and his successors. In 1493, Alexander VI issued the bull Intersurrera, which stated one Christian nation did not have the right to establish dominion over lands previously dominated by other Christian nation, thus establishing the law of nations. Together, the Dum Diversas and the Romanus Pontifex and the Intersurrera became the basis and justification for the doctrine of discovery and the global slave trade of the 15th and 16th centuries and the age of imperialism. So that's how all the slavery came to America. It's all thanks to the Roman cult, folks. International law rule adopted for areas under federal legislative jurisdiction federalizes state civil law, including common law. The rule serves to federalize not only the statutory but the common law of a state. State and federal venue discussed. See the Roman cults at busy in America. The civil laws effective in an area of exclusive federal jurisdiction are federal law, notwithstanding their derivations from state laws, and a cause arising under such laws may be brought in or removed to federal district court. Anyways, this is a cite from Jurisdiction over Federal Areas Within the States, report of the Interdepartmental Committee for the Study of Jurisdiction over Federal Areas Within the States, Part 2, a text of the law of the legislative jurisdiction submitted to the Attorney General and transmitted to the President June 1957, and it's taken from pages 158 through 165. Oh, and get a load of this. This is part of where it all comes from. We therefore decline to overrule the opinion of Chief Justice Marshall. We hold that the District of Columbia is not a state within Article 3 of the Constitution. In other words, cases between the citizens of the district and those of the states were not included in the catalog of controversies over which Congress could give jurisdiction to the federal courts by virtue of Article 3. In other words, Congress has exclusive legislative jurisdiction over citizens of U.S. citizens of Washington District of Columbia, and through their plenary power, that's military dictatorship, folks, nationally covers these citizens, even when in one of the several states, as though the district expands for the purpose of regulating its citizens wherever they go throughout the states of the Union. And that's National Mutual Insurance Company of the District of Columbia versus Tidewater Transfer Company, U.S. Supreme Court, 1948. From 1203 to 1805, 50 million Christians died suffering at the hands of Rome because they believed in Christ alone. They died through Europe, especially Spain, for they saw all but Christ as vain, who suffered by his death for men to save them from their awful sins. 600 years of martyred saints that history cannot erase. With iron heel and iron hand, the Roman popes rule a land. The Rothschilds have been part of the Jesuit order since way before 1776. The Maltese Cross indicates membership and allegiance to the Sovereign Military Order of Malta, a Masonic order created in 1099 by direct descendants of the Roman emperors, of which the Jesuit order is a brand. So the Rothschilds are behind the Bankster Thieves, okay? And so, isn't it interesting that the Pope calls fake news a sin, yet the Catholic Church has been selling false saviors and implicated in child pedophilia for centuries? And there is the Israeli Supreme Court, and then the all-seeing eye that's found also in the Church of Rome and the Roman cult, and also on the U.S. $1 bill. The Vatican's Holocaust. The sensational account of the most horrifying religious massacre of the 20th century by Avro Manhattan, Knight of Malta. Avro Manhattan was the world's foremost authority on Roman Catholicism and politics, a resident of London during World War II. He operated a radio station called Radio Freedom, broadcasting to occupied Europe. He was the author of over 20 books, including the bestseller The Vatican and Roman Politics, twice Book of the Month and going through 57 editions. He was a Great Briton who risked his life daily to expose the darkest secrets of the papacy. His books were number one on the Forbidden Index for the past 50 years, and then the editor's note in 1980 issue from 1986. In 2006, the record is now 70 years on the Forbidden Book list. That means it's over 80 years now. Anyways, the preface to the American edition, The Vatican's Holocaust, is not a misnomer, an accusation, and even less a speculation. It is an historical fact. During the existence of Croatia as an independent Catholic state, over 700,000 men, women, and children perished. Many were executed, tortured, died of starvation, buried alive, or were burned to death. Hundreds were forced to become Catholic. Catholic padres ran concentration camps. Catholic priests were officers of the military corps, which committed such atrocities. 700,000 in a total population of a few million proportionally would be as if 1/3 of the U.S. population had been exterminated by a Catholic militia. What has been gathered in this book will vindicate the veracity of these facts. Dates, names, places, as well as photos are there to prove them. They should have been become known to the American public, not to foster vindictiveness, but to warn them of the danger which racialism and sectarianism, when allied with religious intolerance, can bring to any contemporary nation, whether in Europe or in the New World. This work should be assessed without prejudice as a lesson, but even more vital as a warning for the future of the Americans, beginning with that of the USA. And that's Avril Manhattan, 1986. And armed Serbia could have easily prevented this Holocaust. Thank God for the Second Amendment to the Constitution, which guarantees the right to bear arms. Freedom of religion and an armed citizenry go hand in hand as the only guarantee that this won't happen in the U.S. Why do you think the pimp is running around saying you're not Christian if you have guns? Okay, because they don't want you to be able to defend yourself. That's exactly why. Freedom of religion and an armed citizenry go hand in hand as the only guarantee that this won't happen in the U.S. Editor's note, it is the Vatican one world government that doesn't want you to have the right to own arms or to use any means to defend yourself. And isn't that interesting that George Bush Sr. was talking about a new world order we want to establish here? Pope claims you're not Christian if you own a gun. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, he doesn't want to be able to defend himself. Read the middle paragraph. The New World Order by A. Ralph Epperson. The New World Order will include changes in the family. Homosexuals' marriages will be legalized. Well, that's happened. Parents will not be allowed to raise their children. The state will. All women will be employed by the state and not allowed to be homemakers. Divorce will become exceedingly easy. That's happened. Monogamous marriages will slowly be phased out. The workplace, the government will become the owner of all factors of production. That's happened. The private ownership of property will be outlawed. That's almost happened. I mean, if you're a U.S. citizen, it happened. If you're a state citizen, it hasn't, but most people are too stupid to know about that. Religion will be outlawed. Believers will either be eliminated or imprisoned, and there will be a new religion, the worship of man and his mind. All will believe in the new religion, and this was written in 1989. And this is the Jewish Encyclopedia, 1901 to 1906, states Rothschilds were guardians of the papal treasure, page 497. And up at the top it says, meanwhile, the nationalists and reactionary parties of France desired to counterbalance the Semitic influence by the Rothschilds by establishing a banking concern that should be essentially Catholic. And then if you go down to where the arrow is, it says that in a somewhat curious sequel to the attempt to set up a Catholic competitor to the Rothschilds, that at the present time the latter are the guardians of the papal treasure. So the Roman cult and the Bankster Thieves are tied together and have been all along. This is all falls under Roman law. This is all the Roman cult. When your government has all the guns, that's what happens. That's where you get it, okay? That's why the Pope doesn't think you're Christian if you own guns. He wants to be able to do that kind of stuff with impunity. Pope claims you're not Christian if you own a gun. Any society that would give up a little liberty to gain a little security will deserve neither and lose both. There's a bunch of good following. There's probably some Christians, some good citizens. I was just following orders is never a valid excuse or justification for immoral criminal behavior, and this lame attempt to abdicate personal responsibility should never be accepted as a valid excuse for such behavior. Following orders is not a good excuse. There's some order followers and some good citizens that followed that did what they were told to do too. Pope claims you're not Christian if you own a gun. Every great injustice has been at the hands of someone just following orders. Some people be like, I need more proof. I can't see it. Okay, there's a bunch of law-abiding citizens, and there's brave soldiers just doing their job. They're probably stealing property off all these dead bodies. They're not going to need their gold and silver and money or anything like that anymore. So these soldiers probably need it. So there's a bunch of law-abiding citizens getting, because they didn't have guns, they're getting what they got coming, I guess. The Pope claims you're not Christian if you own a gun. Those who make their fortunes from you being sick are the same people who tell you what will make you well. Isn't that convenient, eh? Death by medicine. That's called medicide, by the way. And that's the pharmaceutical companies that the Roman cult is tied in with as well. Oh, there's some more good citizens there, and because they didn't have any guns, they got what they deserve, I guess, because they didn't have any guns. Pope claims you're not Christian if you own a gun. Taxes were not raised to carry on wars. Wars were raised to carry on taxes. There's some more good citizens there in that ditch there, and there's some more order followers putting some more people in the ditch. Okay, again, those people didn't have the means to defend themselves. If they did, this wouldn't be happening. Pope claims you're not Christian if you own a gun. The war is not meant to be won. It's meant to be continuous. That's called the War on Terror. That's why they want all this stuff going on, the War on Terror and the so-called Patriot Act. What a joke. Oh, there's some more good citizens. Yep, that's what happens. When you're a good citizen, you turn in your guns. Pope claims you're not Christian if you own a gun. We had grasped the great truth that it was not rifles, not tanks, and not atom bombs that created power, nor upon them that power rested. Power depended upon public obedience, upon a willingness to submit. And there's some more people that submitted to the order to turn in their guns. And it looks like they've been stripped of all of their, their gold, silver, and that kind of stuff, their money, because they're not going to need it. Pope claims you're not Christian if you own a gun. Some people be like, I need more proof. I can't see it. Why does the government want to ban semi-automatic rifles or any kind of guns? Because they know you won't get into boxcars willingly. And there's a bunch of people that are going to wind up in those other pictures. Pope claims you're not Christian if you own a gun. China established gun control in 1935. From 1948 to 1952, 20 million political dissidents unable to defend themselves were rounded up and exterminated. And that's what happens when you turn in your guns. You don't have the means to defend yourself. Pope claims you're not Christian if you own a gun. Question is he Christian? The illusion, the left and right, of free choice. The illusion of free choice. The only reason for disarming the people is to make them powerless against tyranny. We will take your guns because we have made an agreement to do so called freedom from war. Yeah, right, freedom from war. That's when they kill off everybody that they don't like, and then there's going to be no war. The United States is third in murders throughout the world. If you remove number 1, Chicago, number 2, Detroit, number 3, Washington, D.C., number 4, St. Louis, number 5, New Orleans, the United States is then 189th out of 193 countries in the entire world. P.S. All 5 cities have strict gun control laws. How convenient. And hey, that's my kind of girl there, I'll tell you. Nice gun. All deposits, so back to the topic at hand. All deposits in a bank account are unsecured loans to that bank. Goldman Sachs used their money to finance the Somali pirates, capturing shipping and demanding ransoms. And if you don't know what that's about 5 years or so ago, there was a bunch of pirates that were capturing shipping off the coast of Somalia and demanding ransoms. And the U.S. Navy went and captured them and brought them back to New York and put them on trial. And it came out in trial that they were owned by Goldman Sachs. And that's all found in my other videos, Banksters 1 and 2, Bankster Thieves 1, 2, and 3. And so, again, that's what the Bankster Thieves do with the money you're loaning them. How much of the terrorism in the world today is financed by banksters with your money? When you make a deposit into a bank account, you are literally financing your own destruction. The banksters are preparing to crash the system and steal the deposits. Because, remember, it's an unsecured debt to the bank. So you're the first one that gets eliminated. There we go right there, housing bubble number 2. This is the first one, the inevitable result of a bubble, and then the second one is it's gone beyond the bubble. Housing bubble number 2. And here we go. This is the Dow Jones 30 futures. And in 2008, it shows the shows the stock market in 2008, and then in 2013 it went beyond that, and now it's going up. There really isn't any descriptor for the blow off. Okay, and this is the S&P 500. And if you notice, it goes from the 2009 low after everything crashed in 2008, and in 2013 it went past the 2007 peak of 1565, and then January 2018 it's at 2802, and so. You have no bubble here, just your average 9-year bull market rising from 666 to 2802. And then notice the central banks hit the stimulus accelerator in 2016. With interest owed on money rises when the interest owed on money rises in relation with the amount of currency issued, you have an ever-increasing debt vacuum that can never be repaid. And that's the point here, is this can never, ever be repaid. It's way too big. This is called a pyramid scheme run by the private corporation known as the Federal Reserve. The 2008 crash was planned and orchestrated. See the Bankster Thieves 2 and 3 videos. The subprime crisis was planned and orchestrated. See the Bankster Thieves 2 and 3 videos. Millions of people are homeless because the banksters planned it that way. They do not loan money. See Bankster Thieves 2 and 3 videos. The banksters were bailed out with $700 billion, and they used it to pay bonuses to their employees to set up the 2018 collapse. That's exactly what's been going on. This 2018 crash has been planned and orchestrated. In 1988, The Economist magazine cover predicted the U.S. dollar to burn, a collapse, and a new world currency in 2018. Deutsche Bank is the world's biggest derivative holder, has $70 trillion in derivatives, and is crashing right now as we speak. Banks in Italy and Spain are crashing, and they planned it from the beginning, and they will make money when they leave the euro. This has all been planned. This is the Economist magazine from 1988, and it shows the phoenix. The phoenix rises from the ashes, and the dollars are burning, and it says, "Get ready for a world currency." Okay, so this has all been planned and orchestrated. This is Deutsche Bank, and all of this is a bunch of other banks, and all of how they're all tied together. But Deutsche Bank is the biggest one, and that's the systemic risk. And if you look, there's just about every major bank in the planet. I think it is every major bank on the planet that's tied in with Deutsche Bank. And so then could Deutsche Bank be another Lehman? This is the Lehman Brothers crash compared with Deutsche Bank, and boy, that chart sure looks similar. And that was in through June of 2018, and so and that's the dark blue is Deutsche Bank, and so it's looking real similar. And Russia's the foreign countries are selling U.S. debt because they know that it's going to cause a collapse. Deutsche Bank will cause a collapse in Europe, and it'll spread. Remember, go back to here. And there's J.P. Morgan, Bank of America, Citigroup. These are all U.S. banks. Morgan Stanley, Wells Fargo, Goldman Sachs, Bank of New York Mellon. These are all U.S. banks, and they're all tied into Deutsche Bank. And so the Russia, they're not stupid. They know what's going on. And so they've been selling U.S. Treasuries in March of 2018 through April of 2018. They reduced their Treasury holdings in half. And so they've been buying gold in a huge case. The Russian central bank buying gold reserve, and this is going back to 1994 and through 2018. So they've been buying gold all along, and a lot of European countries are doing it. The Turkey central bank also sold nearly half of its U.S. Treasury holdings since November, held almost 62 billion 5 months ago, and now only holds 38 billion as of April. Don't forget that Turkey has also begun to repatriate its gold from the U.S. You can't blame them there. Norway, the country, has reduced its share of U.S. debt by a whopping 40% since last September. It held 64.1 billion 7 years ago, and as of April, it only holds 39.3 billion. Japan, the second largest holder of U.S. Treasury holdings, the country cut holdings by 12.3 billion in April to 1.03 trillion. China, the largest owner of U.S. Treasury holds, has also sold 5.8 billion worth in April to 1.18 trillion. Ireland, the U.K., and Switzerland, all these countries sold U.S. debt in April. This is the value of the trade surplus, okay? And so now you have a trade deficit, a total annual exports in billions of dollars. And so China is the world's biggest exporter, 2.63 trillion. The U.S. is the second world's biggest exporter at 1.54 trillion, and Germany is the third world with 1.448 trillion. And think about it, Deutsche Bank is the largest bank in Europe, not just Germany, in Europe, and they have $70 trillion in derivatives. And that is going to cause repercussions that are going to go all over the place. One thing to consider is most, if not all, cryptocurrencies are outside of the bankster control. That's why I'd be buying cryptos. I wouldn't keep any money in the banks. If I had cash, fiat currencies, I'd have it under a mattress. But cryptocurrencies are relatively secure. Matter of fact, they're very secure because they're encrypted. The blockchain is a trustless system. You don't have to trust it. It's mathematical. You trust mathematics is what you do. Most, if not all, cryptocurrencies are impossible to counterfeit. That's why people are so interested in them. Most, if not, but not all, cryptocurrencies circumvent the bankster thieves. Bankster money equals fraud, corruption, taxes, and financing your own destruction. Quit dealing with the bankster thieves. Quit financing your own destruction. When liberty and freedom are at stake, your silence isn't golden, it's yellow. And so, in conclusion, I would be, if you have money, get it out of the bank. I got like $30 in the bank right now, and I take it out. If I get $100, I take it out, and I put it away in stash, and I buy cryptos as much as I can. But and if I have to pay a bill and I need to do it with a credit card or something, I go ahead and deposit enough to cover it and pay it, and that's it. And they're gonna steal everything. They're getting ready to clean it out. All deposits are unsecured debts. Think about it. Like the state of Texas, for example, is supposed to have like $1 trillion in the CAFR account, and when the banksters go under, when this Deutsche Bank thing hits, there's going to be collapses all over the place, and that's all going to get wiped out because it's an unsecured debt. And so keep that in mind. It's coming, and get out of the banks. Get away from the banks. Anyways, thanks for watching. Have a great day.